I've actually even been on a boat in a hurricane hole for Gaston, I think, about a few years back, and it was nothing like this.
No doubt Maria leaving its mark on the island of Puerto Rico, but remember there were other areas here in the Caribbean that had to deal with it as well. This would take you back to Sunday. Hurricane Maria was a Category 1 hurricane at that point as it was approaching the Leeward Islands here, really ramped up now as we got towards Monday evening. It's now a Category 5 hurricane with 160-mile-per-hour winds. Devastating storm, of course, making its landfall here on the island of Dominica. We're talking about Category 5 hurricane, 160-mile-per-hour winds with that central pressure sitting at 924 millibars, caused massive destruction. In fact, we can actually see some of that here from the satellite. We look down and look at these areas here. This is before Maria made that landfall. You got Guadalupe there to the north. There's Dominica there down to the south. And notice these lighter areas here. Those are the lights that are showing up here in the night sky. Well, after Maria, things changed pretty rapidly and pretty drastically. Now you don't see any light areas, completely dark. Yeah, it just goes to show you an island that doesn't have power there. Then, of course, Maria continued to work its way on off towards the north and the west, approaching the island of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands as well, as we worked our way through our Tuesday into Wednesday morning. Category 5 hurricane, those winds were in that 160-mile-per-hour range, started to come down just a bit. That, of course, was as it was moving over the landmass of Puerto Rico, disrupting it just a bit. But you can see that landfall taking place early in the morning of September 20th. Category 4 hurricane there with 155-mile-per-hour winds moving and scraping across the island. Of course, we've seen the pictures. We've seen the damage. We know that basically the entire island was without power, and it could last for 4, maybe even up to 6 months. The recovery is going to be great. Looking at this picture here, this is again before Maria worked its way on through. And look at this lush landscape, all of the green, all of the trees. Well, things changed pretty dramatically here once Maria moved on through. Now look at that, just incredible trees stripped and bare at this point, and a lot of damage here. And these are scenes all across the island. Are pretty incredible that what Maria has done to the island there. Recovery is going to take quite some time. And of course, we're not done with Maria just yet. Working its way now northward, potential impacts for the U.S. East Coast. We're going to keep a very, very close eye on that, how that all plays out here over the next couple of days.
And we want to take you to Massachusetts, where the shoreline is still seeing action. The big waves are kicking up, all with the help of Jose. Here in the town of Hull, winds will top around 30 miles per hour. And the good news is Jose is getting weaker, but the storm's impact remains strong. We also want to take you to Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. This is a live look where wind gusts can reach up to 30 miles per hour. Looks like we're kind of seeing some of the waves crashing across the shoreline right there. High surf advisory is in effect as Jose remains off the coast of New England. Here's the latest on Jose. It's no longer a tropical storm, but it is a post-tropical storm with winds at 45 miles per hour. It's moving stationary. Once again, it's not going anywhere, same as yesterday. So again, it kind of a rinse and repeat situation where we still have some more moisture kind of lingering with Jose. And it looks like my clicker is kind of caught up. I just want to keep on showing this one. But this is the current situation right here. So again, Boston, you can continue to see some occasional showers. We've had some reports across the Boston metro area of some trees down. Here's a look at the forecast as we get into this weekend. It just kind of meanders. Doesn't really go too far. Unfortunately, when it gets a little bit closer to the coastline, that's when you can expect some more impacts to the coastal waves, along with more rain and some more cloud cover, of course. And those winds, the winds are becoming problematic. Those are the things that are causing all those down trees as well. We're seeing gusts as high as 36 miles per hour in Boston, and we still have that tropical storm warning up. Now, crews are finding more survivors, but it's few and far between. An update on the deadly earthquake in Mexico and what the U.S. is doing to help.
infrastructure of the island. But our people are resilient people.
Puerto Rico Governor Ricardo Rosello speaking to the strength of his citizens following Maria. The storm has devastated the island, wiping out clean drinking water and power to everyone.
And we have some new video into us showing you some of the long gas lines in San Juan from earlier today. And you look at this video and you think, oh, maybe they're cars that are maybe stuck in a little bit of traffic. Maybe they're even just parked on the side. But no, those are cars in line waiting to get gas. Extreme long lines there.
And we also have more on Hurricane Maria. Here's the latest. It is a Category 3 hurricane still. Winds are at 125 miles per hour. The pressure at 959 millibars. And it's moving north-northwest at 9 miles per hour. It is 90 miles north of Turks and Caicos. But we also want to talk about the flash flood warnings that have happened in its wake.
Yeah, that's right. Flash flood warning now here for us. This is flash flood emergency, and this is because of a dam failure that has taken place here. Not a good scenario, that is for sure. Dam failure here for the Oaxaca Lake and Dam region. They're trying to get people out of this region as quickly as possible, busing people out. But again, because of a dam failure, there is a flash flood emergency that is now in place as we zoom on into the Oaxaca Lake and Dam region there. So we're going to keep you up to date on this particular scenario here. Story is still unfolding at this point. Hopefully they can get everyone out and away from the waters that are probably rising pretty quickly right now. Well, entire communities, they are still flooded in Bonita Springs, Florida, more than a week after Hurricane Irma wreaked havoc on the area, and crews are still trying to clean toppled trees off of homes.
And Tad Agolia and the First Response Team of America headed to the area to lend a hand.
As Hurricane Irma slammed into Florida, 1,000 miles away in Pennsylvania, the first response team prepared to deploy to the decimated Sunshine State.
Hurricanes are so powerful they can knock out power for hundreds of miles. So you need to come in self-sufficient with the right cutting equipment, extra fuel and water pumps, emergency lighting.
After a 19-hour drive, the team arrived in the Gulf Coast town of Bonita Springs, just 15 miles north of Naples.
There's neighborhoods that are still under feet of water. There's trees down everywhere. Power lines are down, and there's just destruction everywhere you go.
This home belongs to Margaret Gunther. It has been in her family for almost 70 years.
My family came down in 1950. It survived Hurricane Donna, and now this one. Most of it is still standing.
With trees covering the property and temperatures approaching the 90s, clearing up alone is out of the question.
That's why it's so important that the first response team is here to help people do the physical work that needs to be done here. The cutting up of trees, the removing of debris.
A lot of people are tired, don't know what they're going to do. When we show up, we give them a new hope to rebuild.
After a day of backbreaking work in extreme heat, the lot is clear and Margaret can return home.
Feels really great, and that I don't have to look forward to doing that. It would have been a very slow process. I couldn't have done it without you all.
Well, the United States now lending a hand in Mexico City following Tuesday's earthquake. Nearly 4 days after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake devastated Mexico City, the search continues for survivors. Nearly 300 people are dead, but 2 people were found alive yesterday. Hundreds of volunteers are searching through tons of rubble, and the weather can either help or hamper some of those efforts. So let's talk about some of that recovery effort weather here. And generally what we've got right now is cloudy skies around with temperatures generally in the 70s. As we move our way through the next couple of days, tomorrow there is the chance for some showers and storms to pop up out there. You can see around Mexico City dealing with that, with temperatures there topping out right around 75 degrees. And into Sunday, more of the same, those storms popping up during the afternoon hours.
Responding by storm, powered by Ram Trucks. Guts, glory, Ram.
all of that active weather happened in just 1 week. Wow. Thank you so much for staying with us for Weather Center Live. I'm Liana Brackett.
And I'm Alex Wallace. Hurricane Maria devastating the island of Puerto Rico. Images of the destruction continue to pour into our newsroom at this hour.
Take a look at this drone footage shot earlier today. Homes and buildings crushed by the monster storm. Check that out right there. I mean, it looks almost like a war zone. I mean, you can see all the rubble, what used to be bedrooms, kitchens, everything just devastated. And we also have the latest on Maria that caused all that destruction.
New this hour, 38 deaths now blamed on this powerful hurricane. I should say, is failing in western Puerto Rico, people being evacuated from nearby towns.
The mayor of Toa Baja, Puerto Rico, says 4,000 people had to be rescued from floodwaters.
A tropical storm warning is in effect for the central Bahamas. Now over to hurricane specialist Carl Parker for a bit more of a look at where this storm is now and Carl, where it may be headed. And as we look at it, still not out of the woods, the east coast of the U.S.
There is still a chance that we'll see more direct impacts along the east coast, especially in North Carolina. And right now it appears that it's going to be more of an ocean storm than anything else, but there are still some ensemble members that take it farther to the west. And I'll show you why that is in just a moment. So we don't want to let our guard down with this one. Right now it is a Category 3 storm, 125-mile-per-hour wind moving to the north-northwest at 9 miles per hour. There's the visible satellite picture, just a tremendous pounding of wind and rain and storm surge overnight and early this morning into the Turks and Caicos. Here you see the Caicos Islands right in there, Grand Turk Island, then here is Mayaguez there, that's the eastern part of the Bahamas. And the core of the storm is now fairly far away at this time, so we're probably getting tropical storm force winds there, maybe some occasional hurricane force gusts, things slowly improving going through the afternoon. And still there is a storm surge threat of 9 to 12 feet in the southeast Bahamas and also in the Turks and Caicos. Here is the forecast going forward, and the storm is going to continue to be fairly strong for the next few days, and then it will begin to weaken by the middle of the week as westerly winds really start to kick in. Now let's take a look at the players here, and here you see Jose, who's actually going to be a little bit of a connection between what is left of Jose and Maria. Lower pressure there, and storms are drawn to lower pressure. That's part of what's moving it along towards the north. But you notice a ridge of high pressure builds in to the north of the storm, so that really slows it down Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's what makes this rather unusual. A lot of times when storms get into this position, they start to accelerate and race away. That's not going to happen in this case. So the ocean effects that we see from the storm are going to linger for a very long time, going through much of the upcoming week. And then we watch the position of that ridge changing, moving more off to the east here. So we may see just a little bit of a deviation off to the northwest of the storm, and that will bring it closer to the coast of North Carolina. And while most of the model guidance still wants to keep it offshore, there is this idea that it is possible that it tracks farther to the west, and then after that a big trough comes through and sweeps it away at that point. So again, we need to be on guard for the possibility of the storm actually coming more over the Outer Banks, but at a minimum you're talking about this tremendous wave field, huge waves battering the coast. Coastal flooding will be a possibility just because of all of the wave action, to say nothing of the surge that may occur there if the storm is even closer. And also you're talking about beach erosion and rip current threat, but maybe a good bit more than that if the storm does track farther to the west. So we will need to watch it very closely. Alex, over to you.
All right, thanks, Carl. Meanwhile, Maria no doubt has devastated the infrastructure in Puerto Rico. Floodwaters make it hard for emergency crews just to get around.
Communication on the island is also a big problem. NBC correspondent Gabe Gutierrez is in San Juan with a closer look at the challenges they face.
This is a historic building in Old San Juan that was being restored. Now it's collapsed. Puerto Rico's infrastructure is decimated. Power is out to the entire island and communication systems are down. The confirmed death toll from Maria is at least 18 throughout the Caribbean, but local reports suggest it could be much higher.
Hurricane Maria causing new problems for a new Caribbean island this morning, tearing through Turks and Caicos, unleashing another round of destruction. The storm now moving north after flooding parts of the Dominican Republic and ravaging Puerto Rico. In San Juan, downed trees and debris block streets.
We just finished cleaning the street like a week ago.
For Irma?
Yeah,
after Irma.
Yeah.
And now you get hit again?
And now we got hit again, so hopefully today, tomorrow, we'll start cleaning again.
Throughout the island, treacherous flooding is making it difficult to evacuate, with some risking the drive through inundated roads and others walking through waist-high water. Some have been left stranded in the storm's wake. We rode along with the National Guard and the island's governor, Ricardo Rosselló, as they rescued residents in the coastal town of Loíza, which is now underwater. Communication on the island is shattered. Even the governor is having trouble getting in touch with local officials and his own parents.
It's devastated the infrastructure of the island, but our people are resilient people.
Back in Washington, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor is also asking for prayer from her family who live in Puerto Rico. The need for power growing dire.
We are going one day at a time.
Nearly 3.5 million are in the dark. People lining up at gas stations hoping to stock up on fuel for generators. Other islands also growing more desperate. In Dominica, virtually all communication to the outside world has been cut off. The island now a wasteland, vegetation ripped from the ground, entire neighborhoods destroyed. The death toll throughout the Caribbean likely to rise.
Again, a major concern here in Puerto Rico is the lack of communications. Most cell carriers are down. Loved ones on the U.S. mainland cannot reach their relatives in many parts of the island. The cleanup will continue today here in San Juan, as well as other neighborhoods and other parts of Puerto Rico that remain flooded. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Gabe. And indeed, with the recovery efforts, you need the weather to cooperate. And over the next couple of days, we'll have some dry times to get that going. But here's what's going on. There's, of course, Maria pulling farther and farther away from San Juan and Puerto Rico, and as well as the Dominican Republic. Still having some impacts, though, there for the Turks and Caicos to cooperate. And over the next couple of days, we'll have some dry times to get that going. But here's what's going on. There's, of course, Maria pulling farther, flaring up here and there. And those are some of the clouds that are producing some of those showers and some storms as well. The visible satellite showing you some of that activity as well. And that's generally what we're going to see here over the next few days. Heading into tomorrow, you can see San Juan seeing a few showers in the morning. You head back over towards the west there, the island of Hispaniola. There'll be some storms that fire up there. And into Sunday for you, shower potential here for us, but it looks like from San Juan to St. Thomas, mostly looking at dry times, partly sunny skies. Of course, heat and humidity, that will certainly be an impact out there for you. But again, more storm potential back towards the west. Speaking of storm potential, we've got that right in the lower 48, Liana.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, it's so true. I mean, we have a very active weather pattern in the Midwest. We have some severe weather expected. It's expected in the red area. That's the most severe, where you can expect the really damaging winds and some hail associated with it. Outside in the orange, you can still expect some thunderstorms, just not quite as severe as in Fargo as well. So active radar, we are starting to see some lightning pop up across northern North Dakota and as well as well into Canada, but things are staying kind of quiet for now. Now let's take a look at what's to come in the next few hours. We're starting to see some more cells developing later this afternoon with all that heating. Now we're starting Sioux Falls, starting to see those thunderstorms roll through by around 8 p.m. North Platte getting ready to see some action as we get closer to about 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So the continued threat remains into the overnight hours. first day of fall, but some places in the Midwest will see near record highs. Summer has a tight hold on you. Here's a live look at a couple of those cities: Chicago on the left and Grand Rapids, Michigan on the right. Both of you are well into your 90s, and in fact, both of you actually beat your record highs yesterday. Chicago hit a record for yesterday of 94 degrees, and both cities could have heat index values near 100 today. So you need to take the necessary precautions, drink enough water, wear the light colored clothing, because these conditions can be actually dangerous still. So looking at the heat advisory right now, this is very dangerous weather. Much of Iowa and Minnesota, southern Minnesota, in the heat advisory. It includes Des Moines, Waterloo, La Crosse, Minneapolis, and Davenport. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers for some of these spots. We're looking at some pretty dark red colors. Minneapolis, 91 right now, 90 in Des Moines, 93 in Chicago, 90 in Indianapolis, and 93 in St. Louis. Notice this sharp contrast. So we're going to stay pretty warm right here, and I'm going to get into that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about those records. So yesterday we saw 2 records, and for 2 of these sites, Chicago and Grand Rapids. And high so far, you already beat your record so far, 93. The previous record was back in 1956 at 92. Grand Rapids, you totally knocked your previous record out the ballpark. Previous record was 90 back in 1920. You are now at 94. Alpena, Michigan, 91, and previous record 87. So we have a lot of warm air sticking around even into this weekend. So get kind of comfortable with it. It's going to linger. See those temperatures well into the 80s and 90s. Sunday, not much change. Now we're starting to see some cooler air pushing in. It's flirting right near the boundary, but we'll see that change as we get into temperatures staying very hot through this weekend. And it's all because we have this very sharp temperature gradient. The warm air on the right-hand side of that jet stream, on the left-hand side, much cooler air. But watch what it does by early next week. This is going to be a really nice respite from all that heat. We finally see it kind of nudge over Iowa and South Minnesota, right where you have that heat advisory at the moment. So you do get some brief conditions, some nice cooler air popping up as we get into early next week. And taking a look at a couple of your forecasts. Omaha, Nebraska, again, very hot weekend, 90, 89 for Sunday. Then we cool down quite a bit. Monday through Wednesday, staying pretty comfortable with a chance of thunderstorms in the forecast. Alex?
All right, so fall, no doubt, is on the way. Looking at some of those temperatures, though, may take a couple more days before we actually feel it. And if you had plans to maybe get out there to check out some of the fall colors, there are some areas where we do have some colors starting to show. And you see here across the country, into the New England states, you've got some patchy colors showing up there, also into the upper Midwest, parts of the Rockies, and the Northwest as well. A little bit of color showing up in those areas. Although pretty interesting here in the upper Midwest, temperatures in the 90s. It'd be kind of weird heading to check out fall colors with temperatures in the 90s, but that's what we've got over the coming days. So here's what's going on for us today here into the Northeast. We've got the Catskill Mountains, 70s for us, not too bad. A little bit of a wind there for us, and we're seeing some patchy colors showing up. Peaks not until we get into the middle part of October there. Continuing towards the White Mountains, again, temperatures should be in the 70s for the day. Right now we're seeing patchy colors. Our peak doesn't reach until, again, the middle of October there as well. And continuing on, Aroostook County, we've got the 70s for us, not too much in the way of wind, sunny skies, not bad at all. Right now we are near peak, but the real peak takes place in the middle of October. Still a couple of more weeks to go. All right, well, Maria is going to be staying east of the U.S. this weekend. At least that is the current thinking, but any kind of threat is enough to monitor. We're going to take a look at what impacts Maria could bring us in the next few days. More images in the wake of Maria impacting Puerto Rico. Folks here, some folks in fact, being forced to walk in waist-high water. Left behind, some of the floodwaters brought trees down, power lines down, you name it. The storm now blamed for at least 13 deaths there on the island. Let's get the latest on the tropics as well as what's going on with Maria now. We send it over to Liana and Carl.
Thanks so much, Alex. And yeah, Carl, I mean, it's really insane to see how devastating Maria caused, how much devastation Maria caused across the entire region. And it's still kind of going on because we still have those showers that are pushing through the area.
We do, and it's been a really tough year, and there's a way to sort of characterize how bad it's been. That's called accumulated cyclone energy. So we're looking at the wind and how strong it was and how long it lasted. We add that all together, and we come up with an average figure for the season to date that's 72. That's the ACE, and we've got 170. So we're way above the average. So that's one way that you can look at how much worse this season has been as compared to what we typically see through this date. And that's really been due to these three storms, Harvey and Irma, and also Maria, which is now still a Category 3 storm moving north-northwest at 9 miles per hour. And it really has been beating up the Turks and Caicos and parts of the Bahamas since late last night, the overnight this morning. And, you know, these are islands that went through Irma. You know, just like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, they were just starting to recover from Irma. And here they got another really significant hit, hurricane force winds. I think now probably just tropical storm force winds with some hurricane gusts possibly. Still a lot of heavy rain, though, in the Caicos there, and also Grand Turk and into the eastern part of the Bahamas. And you've got a storm surge threat that lingers along with a lot of wave action. So it's only very slowly going to improve. We actually are not getting much in the way of information out of here. You know, all the infrastructure is down and we're not getting the observation. So we don't know exactly what the wind is like, but we just from looking at the satellite that it's not good.
I mean, you would think that they're so far away from the main eye that maybe conditions would be a little bit better. But like you said, I mean, they are still getting just doused with heavy rain.
Yeah, they're still getting pounded by rain. And then all the ocean effects extend well away from the center. That's what we're going to be facing coming up here into the middle of the week. The question is just how close is the storm going to get to the coast? It's likely going to weaken because we're going to see some increasingly westerly winds coming out of across the country there. And so looking at the European model from last night, you see the storm moving to the north, but then really slowing down. So you've got this great big storm, this huge wave generator, and a lot of times as storms come up from the south and come around the east coast like this, they begin to accelerate and move out to the northeast. That's not happening in this case. This thing's going to slow down, so slowly approaching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Finally on Thursday, it starts to feel a system coming through the Midwest, and then it's going to move very quickly out going into Friday. But that's going to mean a prolonged period with very, very large waves moving into the coast. So even if the center of the storm is well offshore, you've got this tremendous wave action coming into the coastline, and that can actually cause coastal flooding because you get a wave that comes in and that raises the water level. That's called wave setup. And then another wave comes in on top of that and it raises it a little more. So it kind of steps up as these waves continue to crash into the shore. So I think coastal flooding is going to be a big worry, maybe along Highway 12 in North Carolina, the Outer Banks in particular. Beach erosion, certainly, rip current threats, certainly. All of that is set. But then if the storm tracks a little farther to the west, well, it's certainly going to amplify those ocean effects, obviously, but then you're also going to be talking about increasing the wind and also looking at the possibility of some very, very heavy rain. Now, this is looking at the European ensemble guidance here, and this is basically where it's been over the last several days. We haven't seen a lot of change here. We've seen a little bit of shifting to the east, a little bit to the west. Mostly it is offshore, but there is still this chance that it's more to the west here. And you know, what's interesting is as the storm is approaching, the reason why it slows down is because a big high builds in to the north. And then the axis of that high shifts farther over here to the east. And so that's why some of the modeling actually wants to take this thing and curve it more towards the northwest and more towards North Carolina. So it is still possible that the core of the storm could get a lot closer to the Outer Banks. That's still a possibility at this time. So it's one of those things where we just have to watch the evolution of the pattern. We just don't know for sure. Looks like it's going to be an ocean storm, but it might be something more than that.
All right. Thank you so much, Carl. We'll check back with you in just a moment.
I want to get you the very latest on a tornado cloud over the lake. So the tornado water spout.
This is Weather Center Live. I'm meteorologist Alex Wallace.
And I'm meteorologist Leona Brackett. Hurricane Maria still packing 120 and higher mile-per-hour winds this hour as it passes northeast of the Turks and Caicos Islands.
And we're getting a chance to get our first look at some of the damage left behind on the islands. Boats toppled, trees essentially snapped in half.
Yeah, we want to get right to hurricane specialist Carl Parker for a look at where the system is now and where it's headed. Carl?
Still a very powerful storm, slowly now moving away from the Turks and Caicos and also the Bahamas. And so the question is it going to get close to the United States going into the middle part of next week? It's really going to slow down. We know it's going to be a giant ocean storm that produces a huge area of very large waves. That'll be coming into the coastline no matter what. But then obviously, if it's closer to the coast, that's going to raise the stakes in terms of wind and rain and storm surge and the wave action and all of those ocean effects. Right now, it is a Category 3 storm, winds of 125 miles per hour. It's moving towards the north-northwest at 9 miles per hour. Here is the visible satellite picture, and you can still very clearly see there's a well-developed eye there. It's not quite as well-formed as we've seen in all of the storm's history, but it's definitely there. And the storm still now bringing some very strong wind and no doubt heavy rain to the Turks and Caicos and into the Bahamas, and that's slowly going to be improving through the course of the afternoon. Still a hurricane warning in effect for the southeastern Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. Tropical storm warnings in effect for Long Island and Cat Island in the Bahamas, and still a threat for a storm surge of 9 to 12 feet in the southeast Bahamas, and also